introducing myself, and then I'll soon introduce my co-presenters. My name is Sean Warren, and I work with QAwalli, and I've been called on to just be the host for today. So there's a few things that I'll do before I introduce our stars of the presentation. First of all, I'll tell you about the webinar. So this webinar today is titled Southern New Hampshire University, Managing Curriculum in a Changing Landscape. This webinar is brought to you by QAwalli, hence why I'm here. And there's a little bit of sort of administrative information that I do want to share with everyone. Our webinar will be recorded today, and we will share the link with all attendees. This link is also something that you can share with your colleagues. And if you do have any trouble with that, just let me know and we'll send it out to you. But we expect that should be something that you'll see in your email shortly following the webinar. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please type your questions in the chat panel on the right side of your screen. We typically would have a questions panel and a chat panel, but the questions panel is just not working well today. So please put all of your questions in the chat channel. We'll save time at the end of the webinar to address your questions. And if it turns out that we run late on time, any questions that go unanswered, we'll make sure that we follow up with answers that we'll send to all attendees. Now, a little background. So we've worked with SNHU to coordinate this webinar because of the success of two well-attended luncheons we hosted at ACRO in Phoenix. Our initial plan was to only actually have one luncheon, but the interest was so great, we scraped together another day. So we did 2 days of this luncheon, and it was really well attended. And we figured that because of that interest, that we would want to share that with the broader audience. And so we've coordinated this webinar, and SNHU and the team there has been kind enough to join us in leading this webinar that I'll hand over to them in just a second. So I'll tell a little bit of frame of reference about this webinar and about the process. I personally have had the pleasure of working with SNHU during the implementation of QAwalli curriculum management. And SNHU has been a fantastic partner in this process. And as an early adopter of QAwalli, SNHU has been instrumental in helping define the features and functionality you see in the product today. And we're still in the process, and again, their feedback has really made the product better. So without wasting too much of your time listening to me, I'd like to introduce you to the stars of today's presentation. We have three presenters from Southern New Hampshire University. We have Lauren Visnaskas. She's an assistant registrar for curriculum and scheduling. We also have Samantha Poulin. She's an assistant registrar for curriculum and scheduling. And finally, we have Lauren Regan, and she is a senior assistant registrar for records and registration. So without further ado, I will turn the presentation to our colleagues from SNHU.
All right. Hi, guys. First off, we're going to talk a little bit about Southern New Hampshire University, a little bit about our Registrar's office, some of the challenges and complexities here within our university, and then how QAwalli has helped us manage all of those. So our first one, we're going to talk about our business units, and I will touch on the first one. We have University College, which you'll hear me reference as UC. This is your traditional campus student, so they live here on campus, they utilize the housing options, dining options. We have roughly about 3,500 of these students. They are in what we call our 16-week term structure. So we have our fall day term, our spring day term, and then we've also recently implemented a summer day term. Within this business unit, it's further divided into 3 schools. So we have our School of Business, our School of Arts and Sciences, and our School of Education. And each of these schools is really responsible for the curriculum, all of the programs that they oversee, all of the faculty that teach all of their courses, some of the students, and then also making sure that they pretty much just uphold SNHU policies and procedures.
Okay, and then we have College for Online and Continuing Education, in which you'll hear us say COCE or COSE. We have about 55,000 of those students, and we offer both undergrad and graduate programs for them. Our undergrad students take courses in a 9-week term structure, and our grad students take courses in a 10-week term structure. And then finally, our third business unit is College for America, which we call CFA, about 3,000 of those students. These are completely non-traditional undergraduate students. We offer associates and bachelor's programs. This is our competency-based education, which I'll go into the structure on that a little bit later. But this is for our students who are looking for complete flexibility in their education. We get these students through employer partnerships, and the skills that they learn are relatable to their line of work and their industry. So for example, we offer a BA and an AA in healthcare management, and that helps our students who we have through our Anthem partnership in their line of work. And this is a 6-month term structure, and in that time they can earn all they can learn.
All right, so this is a quick organizational chart. We have about 5 different teams, and they are broken up by like specialization. So we actually serve all of the 3 different business units based on the tasks that each team oversees. So this goes into a little bit more detail about the team. So real quick, we have our academic progress and graduation team. They pretty much monitor all degree completion and confer all degrees for all of our 3 business units. They also handle any program modifications. So if a student wants a certain course to count somewhere on their program eval, with proper approval, they'll manipulate that on the eval. We have our cross-functional team, and this, I don't know if you noticed on the slide before, but they report directly to our university registrar. And their purpose is to support the 4 different teams. So they focus on process improvement, reporting needs. They also track our service level agreements. And then we have our transfer credit team, which is pretty much exactly that. They process all transfer credit. Some of this includes military, advanced placement. They also handle all requests to take courses at another institution. They also do reevaluation of transcripts. So if a student is questioning why a certain course came in the way it did, they would relook at that. And they also play a major role in our study abroad program. And they also upkeep all of the equivalencies in our student information system. The next team is our records and registration. They oversee and deal with all of our grades, including our incomplete and any grade changes. They monitor scholastic standing. They process all of our transcript requests. They do our enrollment reporting. They handle a majority of the registrar functions for CFA, our College for America. And they also handle our academic calendars for our university college business unit. And then the last team is curriculum and scheduling. They publish and maintain all the catalogs. So we have basically 3 different catalogs, one for UC, one for COSI, and then they're taking over the one for CFA. They program all approved curriculum, so anything that's approved, they go in the background and set that up in our student information system. They handle any questions about program evaluation, so if a certain course isn't coming in a certain way, they look behind the scenes to see why that is the case. And also they handle all of our scheduling for our UC students. So when a certain student looks and sees that classes meet, Monday, Wednesday from a certain time, that's inputted in the system through that team. And then they also have 2 generalists that answer the phones and also help monitor our email inbox.
Great. So Lauren just talked a little bit about the day-to-day functions and the different teams of our office. I just want to spend a couple minutes talking about the structure of our office overall and things that we do to help with the complexity here at SNHU. So we have 37 staff members. We plan to hire 15 plus more during the next fiscal year. A lot of our hiring is done based on critical thinking, analytical skills, rather than experience in higher education, because even if someone comes with experience in higher education, the complexity here is so crazy that they have to relearn everything anyway. We are one of the few centralized departments that work with all 3 business units that we've been talking about. So for example, advising is broken down. So there's an advising for our on-campus university college students. There's advising for our COCE students, and then CFA, College for America, they have coaches that act in an advisor type aspect. We handle everybody, so we deal with all of them just in this one office. The way we do that is we attend and are members of most committees. So we go to curriculum meetings, we go to policy meetings, we even go to IT meetings to make sure our projects get prioritized towards the top if we really need them. The other important thing is we have an advisor-centric model here. So what we see is a breakdown in the system if some kind of student interaction occurs. So if a student can't get what they want from their advisor and they actually have to come down to our office or call our office, then we know that something's wrong. So we know that they couldn't get what they wanted from their SNHU, or their advisor didn't have the right information. So all of these things usually lead to some kind of effort on our part. So either a project to make sure the information gets out correctly, or an advisor training, or that kind of sort. Hopefully everybody's with us so far. So there's 4 main things that our office kind of wants to tackle besides those day-to-day things that are really important to us. And they're on this slide right here. I'm just going to talk quickly about each of them. The first one is implementation. So what happens is somebody somewhere has a great new idea and policy. So for our office, that leads to determining the procedures to ensure compliance and scalability. So for example, we recently entered into some partnerships, sports management partnerships with Major League Soccer and the Patriots. So we can't say to those students, hey, you only have 8 weeks and they start here and they end here. We need to figure out how to be flexible so the students get a good experience, but also make sure we're staying in compliance and reporting correctly to the clearinghouse. So that's the main function of our job. The next thing would be enforcement. So we have different policies for each business unit, and then within that, we can also have different policies for each program. So for example, we can run class expanding about 100 times per year because we've got in one term structure, we can have grad students, undergrad students, and then the nursing students are held to a different standard. And then our provisional students are held to a different standard. So at any one term end, we can be running 6 or 7 reports just for that term. Process improvement is also something that's really important to us, and what we've been working on it a lot this year, and we'll continue to do so. We have 1 business analyst in our office who's dedicated to process improvements and efficiencies and works with all of the teams. The one thing we did this past year is transfer a lot of our paper forms over to electronic forms. That way students don't have the hassle of printing something and sending it. They just go on and hit submit, and it goes right into their student file. And finally, student needs. This list clearly isn't in order because that's very important to us too, but for student needs, we do multiple conferrals, about 15 per year, 1 each month, and a couple special ones. And that's because students want to have the honor of finishing their degree and getting their diploma right away, so we kind of do that as fast as we can. Internal transfers, if the courses are equivalent, it will follow the student to whichever business unit they choose to take courses in. So we want students to be able to choose, so if they're going to stay with SNHU, we want them to be able to take classes on campus or through College for America or go to COCE. We've got 7 term structures, mix of all different student types and academic levels. We even have 1 term structure that's just for 1 program. And it's very complex, but it really is for the best for the education of the students. So that's why we do it. I'm just reading a note from the chat that the question box should be working and that you can use that as well to submit questions. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about CFA. This is College for America, and this is again one of those things that were one of those great ideas that we just kind of had to figure out how to make it compliant and how to make it work so that it was good for the students and good for compliance and scalability. So if you look at the chart here on the screen, we've got 2 sides of it. So when a student masters the competencies, they've also mastered the CFA goal. Once they've mastered that CFA goal, they've also mastered that equivalent course. So for example, if they master the competency of can analyze current macroeconomic and financial news, then and the other 5 competencies under that goal, then they've also mastered analyzed data. Once they've mastered analyzed data, they've also mastered ECO 202, which is SU's macroeconomics course. So because we have those 2 sides of the chart there, the students have made 2 programs, one for their competencies and goals and one for their equivalencies, which means they have 2 program evaluations, 2 transcripts. The grades are MA for mastery, and if students want to take that degree in courses and transfer them elsewhere, our transcript says that those are equivalent to an A grade on a traditional scale, but it doesn't have any equality points. And then the student interface for CFA students is Salesforce, but colleague is still the system of record that we use here. So the lots of auditing and reporting that happens to make sure that the information in Salesforce bridges over here to colleagues so that we can have accurate student records. And then the last complexity of CFA is the predictability. Because we work through those partnerships, one partnership could double our size, and it's really hard to determine what we might look like in the future.
So another challenge in addition to CFA is our curriculum and programming. We have roughly about 388 total unique programs. Some of these are strictly just for our COSI students, some are strictly for our UC students, and all of them are strictly for our CFA students, but we also have a good portion of our undergrad programs are actually shared between our UC students and our online students. So as these business units kind of developed and branched off, if you will, a couple years ago we had to decide how we wanted to incorporate each business unit pretty much being able to dictate different courses and requirements that are really the same program. And so we created 4 different catalog versions for each academic year, and they're not listed there, but we have pretty much 2 that belong to our university college business unit and 2 that belong to our online business unit. And so each of them have pretty much a freshman version if the student comes right into that business unit, and that's basically what they're going into. And then we also have a transfer version. So these 4 catalog versions allow us to be able to dictate different courses and requirements based on the business unit in which the student is studying. We will be splitting out our associates next year, so that is in the works as well for basically in the same regard. And then majority of our graduate programs reside in COSI, so we haven't had to do that yet. Our UC has actually started to implement some graduate programs, and the way we've dealt with that is more of a unique program code. So you could have 2 grad students, one in our UC and one in our COSI that are both in marketing, but the program code that is attached to that student is actually different, and so that's how we can dictate different courses and requirements. We've also recently started dictating different prereqs based on the student type. So in our system, it's pretty easy to see what student is online and what student is on campus. And so in the background, we've been able to create some rules that says, you know, if you're student X, you need this prereq, and if you're student Y, you need this prereq. So an example of that is actually our Accounting 405 course. For UC students, they need Accounting 308, and for COSI students, they need Accounting 309. So you could have a program eval that looks different for our UC student and our COSI student, and they could have different gen ed. Their business core is going to be different. They can have a different amount of free electives. In regards to that last bullet, at the end of the day, we need to make sure that their program outcomes are the same. So what a student learns when they leave SNHU and are entering the workforce. We have one SNHU degree. It doesn't dictate or specify on there whether they took online courses or on campus. So each student's path can be different in terms of how they earn that degree, but we need to make sure that the program outcomes are all the same, so they walk away knowing the same information.
Thank you, Lauren. This is Samantha. I've been the representative from the Registrars office working on the QAwalli project. Right now it is still in the project phase as there are many people involved and many configurations still being made, but we hope to be live later this year within all 3 business units. So first I'll talk about some of the things that we like about QAwalli and why we chose them. First, we really like the platform that they offer. It's clean and simple and user-friendly. It's easy to navigate, find the information you need, and we love the workflow. It makes it really easy for users to propose changes or to propose new courses or programs. Right now, the curriculum management system will house information that we have stored in several different locations. So we have information in QAwalli that's currently in our student information system. It can be in spreadsheets, databases, the school portal, or it's information stored in the back end of our student information system, which can only be found in reporting, which can be cumbersome at times to have different platforms open. This way it's all housed in one location. We also like how easy it is to edit fields and configure the forms in a way that are practical for us and another school might like it configured in a different way. For example, a field could be a text field or multi-value or drop-down. You can create it any way you'd like to make it work for you. This is currently workflow for the rest of online and continuing education. As you can see, it's a very simple format, clean lines, and within COCE, I just did a little snippet that you can see. You can add different positions within COC, and within there you can add the users. So if I want one C3 chair or 10 C3 chairs, I can add as many people as needed. And so the subgroups have been very useful for us in configuring the workflows, as the workflow for COC, UC, and CFA are all very different.
I just wanted to pause as we got a question that said, what is our student information system? And we use Kuali.
So this is the workflow from the user perspective. Right now it lists all of the proposed changes, and within the form it will highlight the sections that are being changed. So you can see a list on top, and if you were to scroll through the form, you would see what the old course description was and what the new course description was. And that's one of our favorite features in this workflow process. And you can see towards the bottom here where the form is in the workflow. So right now you can see it's with me, so everyone who's in the workflow knows that it's with me and I have to approve it still. And I can go to the previous users and see if they've left any comments, whether it's just good job or they're stating something needs to be fixed still. And there are a variety of options for the approvers that you can see on the right side. So they can make edits, approve, deny, or send back the form to another user. So this is just an example of the course information in the menu. You can see on the left side there's a static menu where you're able to look at the courses, programs, concentrations, and the proposals, as well as some other features we're still working on. And for the courses, you're able to search by subject, the number, or a keyword that's listed in the title or the program description. So you can see here I'm looking for any of our English courses, but you could also look for a course that had statistics in it or was about psychology but wasn't necessarily a psychology course. And you can do the same with the concentrations in the programs. And the concentrations, your school might call them a focus or a specialization, and those will link to the program. So we have a subset that helps to keep our programs organized. So collaborating with QAwalli has really been great so far. As Sean mentioned, he's been involved in our project. The communication is open, and he's always willing to Skype or email to resolve any issues or questions we've been having. Since day one, he's been handling all of SNHU's complexities, and he's been a great asset to us. We've been able to come to them with complicated issues our university is having, and they always figure out a way to manage that issue. Maybe it's with a gadget they already have, or they're able to configure a new one for us to help meet our needs. So these are some of the configurations and features that they have configured especially for us, or they're just our favorite. The first one is the Dependencies Gadget. We're now able to find everywhere a course is located within a prerequisite in all the programs without having to open multiple programs or reporting tools. So this has been extremely convenient for us because we offer so many courses and programs, and the schools are often banking or unbanking, meaning it's not being used anymore or it hasn't been used in 10 years and they're bringing it back. So it helps us to find where everything is and propose curriculum changes in order to replace that course. The next feature is the outcomes. I know that's been a popular feature and it's something that we're still working on. In theory, it will link all of the course outcomes, program outcomes, institutional outcomes, and the unique code that we're using for that. But there are still some internal discussions that we're having in order to get that gadget working correctly. And this is the linked courses gadget. So this has been extremely beneficial to us because we didn't previously have a way of finding out where courses are being offered within each unit unless we looked at programs and sections that were being offered for that course. So this way, when somebody is proposing a change to, for example, English 220, they can see that whatever change they make may affect College for America and the University College. And lastly, one of our favorite features is the equated courses gadget. It allows us to equate a special topics course or cross-listed course or something that's similar to another in order for it to flow into a program evaluation. And this is also housed in our student information system, but what we like about QAwalli is that we can have all of this information on one screen instead of multiple screens, and it's accessible to everyone. And this way, we also didn't have a workflow process in place before, so this helps to define a procedure for us to equate these courses.
So in conclusion, as you can tell, we have 3 different business units. They all have differing needs, policies, procedures, and they're all of varying size. So we still need to make sure that the students have a seamless experience regardless of whichever business unit they choose to study in, or if that is multiple of them as well. So due to the complex nature, the curriculum and programming aspect has become difficult, and QAwalli has provided multiple opportunities for us to streamline this process and provided, as Sam mentioned, a lot of flexibility, and we've been able to configure a lot the product to meet our business needs. So we only believe this will further enhance the students' education, and it'll be able to maintain the flexibility for our students to move between these different business units based on their needs, their lifestyle, or their learning style. So we will hand it back over to Sean for the Q&A portion.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. We do have a couple of questions, and I suspect we'll get a few more as we go along. So the first question is, this one is really to Sam, is the attendee noticed that the registrar step shows up there 3 times in the workflow. What role does the registrar have in each of those steps? Very good question.
Yes, I can explain that. So since the registrar's office is ultimately responsible for all of the information that goes in the system, we have 3 different steps. The first one is to review the agendas before they go to a vote in the curriculum meetings. The second one is to review any changes that have been made in the curriculum meetings. And then the third one is to implement this into our systems. So although everything goes through QAwalli, we then have to implement it into our curriculum system, into our student information system.
Excellent. Thanks, Sam. And the next question is, what scheduling software does Southern New Hampshire University use?
We still just use Colleague. We don't have anything that's specific, another software. We pretty much have a set scheduling period, if you will. So our office handles, like I mentioned, all of our university college scheduling, and then we actually have our online division, and they handle all of the scheduling for our online sections. So we, within Colleague, input all of the information in terms of the, as long as the course is built in the system, we can build a section of it, and whatever the school deans request in terms of when they want it to meet, certain days and times. We input that in, and that is what appears on what we call My SNHU, which is where the student will look when determining what courses they want to register for.
Excellent. I don't see any other questions, but there could be a little delay. We'll give a minute there. One thing that I'll add is that I didn't mention before is SNHU is of course working with us implementing the curriculum management tool, but they're also working with us as a partner to develop a catalog tool, because again, the curriculum management product really houses the majority of the information necessary to feed a catalog. And so again, it's just another area where they've been super influential in defining what that looks like. And that project is going along very well, and we really value the feedback and the direction that they've been offering. And for those that maybe did not see the question before, there was a question about the student information system, and I believe that was answered, and that is currently colleague. Okay, so I don't see any additional questions. Let me check one more source because we're having a little, okay, okay, there's another question. Do you integrate with student information systems? And that's a question that I can answer. Yes, we absolutely do integrate with, in theory, all student information systems. Our system is agnostic to the student information system. We have a very strong set of APIs that we use ourselves for interacting with data, and we expose to all of our customers. So our customers can write integration code to our APIs to pull any amount of data out of the system that they would need, and or push data into the system. And that is, of course, very helpful during implementation and required, especially for those types of data that are quite large. And then otherwise, if there's any sort of exchange of data between systems to keep systems in sync, again, these APIs are well documented, very easy to use, and allow for that movement of data. So the continuation of the question is, our customers are using Ellucian Banner and Homegrown and PeopleSoft? Absolutely. Any of those systems can interact with our APIs, and the burden on the developers to create that integration is very, very low. Okay, I do have another question for the SNHU team. Do you have a catalog management system?
Yes, right now we are using Acalog.
Okay. And here's a question that's coming in, and I'll add to that. So SNHU is using Catalog currently, and as I referenced before, they're working with us to help us define our catalog product, and QAwalli will have a catalog product available for use by the end of this year. And let's see here. Okay, so I have a question that's kind of directed at me. It is asking, do we have other schools using our software? And is the software delivered in the cloud? So the answer to both questions is yes. And there's a little bit additional information I can offer. So right now we have a number of partners and customers that are using QAwalli and are in various stages of implementation and in production. We have Coventry University, we have 2 universities in South Africa using it, Northwest University being one of them. We have University of Hawaii using the software. We have University of Toronto using the software. And we have Brigham Young University in the process of implementing the software. So each of those institutions is at various phases, having started at different times, but we do have customers using the product in production. And the question about delivery in the cloud, this is a question actually that is, we have a unique answer for. So yes, what you have seen and what SNHU is the product that they're using is our cloud offering, meaning we deliver the code, We do all of the administration. The IT burden on the customer is incredibly low, and essentially the software is consumed as a service. Now, what makes us unique is that we are also, QAwalli software is also open source. And as our CEO often references, what that means is that you're not locked in to a relationship with us if you choose not to be. And if we are ever unreasonable, our prices get too high, we're not delivering the service that you want, you can taking their data and the software code, the code itself, and running it locally and not having that relationship with us anymore. So choosing QAwalli is something that gives, that prevents lock-in that you often have with other vendors. A very unique way of a different business model. Okay, another question here is more of a technical question, is what authentication protocols do you integrate with? Currently, out of the box, we integrate with Shibboleth, CAS, and Microsoft Active Directory Federation services. And another question, let me read it before I know who it's for. How many customers are live? Again, we have 20 institutions in various phases of planning and executing the rollouts. Again, I've mentioned several of those. And like SNHU, several of our customers actually have multiple of our implementation process is working with your institution to figure out where your data resides, the state the data is in, whether or not it's in a file folder, which it could be, or in some sort of electronic system. I typically am someone that works with the institution to figure out how to get the data into a state so that our APIs can be used to load that data into the system. And the feedback that we generally from our customers is that the process is not terribly difficult for the developers. You know, most developers have no trouble working with well-documented APIs. Okay. And another question, can you confirm that you've only implemented courses, or did you also implement program and specializations? And this is coming from one of our friends from South Africa, Nina. And the question, the answer to the question is, I'll maybe let Sam answer that question. So Sam, are you implementing not only courses, but also programs and specializations?
Yes, for now that's what we're doing, but we're gonna keep you on your toes, Sean, and maybe we'll implement some more stuff.
Excellent. Very cool. Okay, so we have another question. Are you planning on publishing your CM content to a content management system, interface, web pages, elaborating on your planning, perhaps? So in other words, how are you exposing the data from curriculum management with both customers, or students rather, as well as the general public? And that's maybe a question for Lauren or Sam. And it sounds like it relates to the catalog and your sort of marketing websites.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. What is your plan for exposing the data collected and managed in curriculum management? Are you using a content management system? How do people from the outside of the university and within, how do they see that data that is managed in curriculum management?
That data will be used in the catalog and as well as our student portal.
Cool. And your development team is working on managing the process of pulling that data and presenting it in a way that's consistent with your marketing rules and processes. But again, that in coming, you know, as the catalog product is further developed, soon that data will be exposed through the QAwalli catalog product. But it's still there's still that additional work that needs to be done so that the student portal and for folks coming in from the outside from a marketing perspective can see the data in the way that your institution wants it to be displayed.
Yes.
Okay, and so scheduling software, that question came in before. I think we talked about that you don't have specific software, but your colleague does that for you. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, good question. And who does another question, who does the Office of the Registrar report to within the university?
We report to the Chief of Staff. He actually resides in the President's office. So that's who we currently report to as of now.
Excellent. There's a question about seeing more specific step-by-step slides of the course proposal revision process. What fields are present? How customizable is it? Sam, do you have?
Yeah, we have it set up here. Give us 1 second to pull up the environment.
So we'll just take a moment here to kind of show a little bit of the live instance, but we can follow up and schedule something more in depth so that we can really dig into the particulars of the product. But while we do have a few minutes, we can show you a few of the live screens.
So this is an example of one of the courses that I had a slide for in the presentation. So most of this information is available to anyone who is a user in QAwalli. The only items that are not available are, sorry, hold on one moment. Sorry about that, are the course requisites and the registrar section, and that's because that's information that's just for our office and we don't want anyone else to be making changes to it. But all of the other information that's pertinent to the course, such as we have general education information, the outcomes, anything in regards to the prerequisites, the description, and other information like the amount of credits, the course capacity, and the titles are all public information within the university.
Yeah, and that,
sorry,
Sam.
As well as the gadgets that I showed previously, the linked courses, the dependencies, and up here at the top, if you were to propose a change, there would be the proposal rationale, and everyone in the workflow would see that.
Yep, and that brings up a good point, and we do have a couple of questions to get to, but everything you see, as Sam mentioned before, is configurable. Every label, every type of gadget for collecting data, regardless of the type of data, is fully configurable. There is no schema that you have to abide to. You make your own schema. And any of the panels that you can see on the screen now, like you can see offering, everything below offering and the other sort of different colored bar that you see there is called a panel. And you can make any panel in the system admin only. And so as Sam mentioned before, that some of that data toward the bottom of the page, that registrar information is an admin only panel. So Sam's leg is logged in as an admin, but if she was logged in as a faculty person, they just simply would not see that panel. And so again, there's a lot of flexibility in the forms to make it do exactly what you want it to do. So that was great, Sam. Thank you. All right, we have a few more questions that we'll try to get to. There's a question that says, can you speak to the 2 transcripts again and how students would move from a competency-based program, graded course into a degree program that has quality points like A through F?
Sure. Yeah, this is Lauren here. So students can work on any competency that they want in College for America. So when I was showing that example, analyze data, they don't have to just do those at a time and finish that class. They can do any competency that they want across a range of different items. So what their coaches do is really try to help them make sure that if they are looking to transfer, or if they do want to just do an internal transfer within business units, that they're completing a goal, so that they also complete a course. And that way, if they were to transfer, they would just order that SNHU equivalency transcript. So it would just say Eco 202, and then it would have a grade of MA. On the back it would say MA is equal to a grade of A on a traditional grade scale. And then just like if you had a pass-fail course or a satisfactory, unsatisfactory, it would be up to that school whether they would transfer that in. So for us, if they want to stay here, of course we're going to transfer that, and Eco 202 will now go towards their program if they decide to take online courses.
Excellent. Okay, there's a few more. The question is, I believe I saw Salesforce listed somewhere in the presentation. Do you use Salesforce along with QAwalli?
We use Salesforce is only College for America uses that, and that's their student information and student interface. So that's where the students go in and look at their projects, just because it's really user friendly and easy for them. That's the only thing currently we use it for.
Excellent. All right, so here's a good question. Do the academic departments, or do you plan for them to enter the course information into QAwalli Curriculum Management, or is the data entered and managed by the Registrar's office?
Well, it's sort of both. The Registrar's office does manage all of the course and program information, but it's the faculty and academics who are initially entering this information, and if they were proposing a new course or a new program, they would be entering all of this information, and then it's our responsibility to make sure it's up to our standards.
And I think that goes back to the 3 times you saw the registrar on there. So that way we can review everything before we officially approve it, and again, so it doesn't go all the way through and then it gets to us and it's something we either can't accommodate or something we can't do. So they will initially propose it, but then we kind of check in and make sure follow through the process as well.
Excellent. Okay, we have a little bit more time. This one I might be able to answer. There's 2 questions and I'll answer them pretty quickly. So can someone on this call, on this webinar, get a demo of the product? The answer is yes. And our team will follow up after the webinar and make sure everyone has access to someone that can help them schedule that if that's something they'd like to do. Another question is, how long is the average implementation? And that's a really good question. And you know, QAwalli's been around now for just over a year. And we've made great progress and grown really fast. But given that amount of time, we don't have the amount of data that we would need to have, statistically valid averages. But I would say that an implementation could, it's something that could happen in between 60 and 90 days. That's possible. It may not be probable, but it's possible. The amount of actual work to get the software working is pretty minimal, to be honest. The part of the process that takes the longest in any of these types of implementation is making a decision. You know, there's a lot of input at the institution level for making a decision on what does the form look like and what is our unit hierarchy, surprisingly, is one that comes up a lot. And what does our workflow look like? And you don't know what you don't know, so it's very iterative, and getting all the right people involved in the process is the time-consuming part of the implementation. So I'd say that the variable of determining the length of an implementation is directly related to how much time the critical people at the institution level have to devote to the project. And in an ideal world, everyone working on this project does that full time. And if that were the case, I think you could implement this in 60 days. The reality is that's not terribly realistic, and most people have their day jobs. So, you know, at this point now, we're finding that 60 we believe is possible. We think 90 to 120 days is what we're seeing in reality. But again, that's a function of the available time of the people working on the project at the institution side of things. And again, complexity of institution, how much change that you're trying to make at the same time, and there's a lot of variables. But it does not, this is not one of those projects that takes a year or two, by no means. Okay. There's a question that says, one of you mentioned saving electronic documents to an electronic student file. May I ask you to please tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we use Perceptive software, and we use ImageNow for that feature that's owned by Perceptive. And students will go onto their portal and it creates a link for them, and they click on the link and a form opens up and they can fill out all the information. Faculty use it too for grade change forms and incomplete forms. And a lot of the stuff auto-populates, so their name, their email address, their ID, that all auto-populates. And then when they hit submit, it comes to us in a workflow and it'll wait for us. In a workflow, so say we have one for grades, so someone on my team will go into the grades one and process all the grade changes and incomplete. But then it's already in ImageNow, which is where we put it anyway if we received our paper form in the end. And we can also put approved stamps on it that have time stamps. We can make notes on it that said, well, the dean approved this. So it's really flexible in that way. Perceptive software, ImageNow.
Excellent. All right, we have time for a few more. And this is to SNHU specifically. Is there a restriction at your institution on when course changes can be submitted that would affect the implementation term?
I wouldn't say there are really any deadlines other than for catalog. We request that any changes to courses and programs be in by a certain date so that we're able to review everything and publish our catalog on time. Otherwise, any restrictions are more personal within that business unit for whatever goals they're trying to achieve.
All right, excellent. Here's a good question to SNHU is, how do you plan to train your faculty on using the system?
We'll be doing a live training. It's going to be broken up into sessions in order to train them. They're able to bring their laptops and play along and try the system out. There's also, we haven't mentioned the staging version where we're able to sort of play around in Kuali and mistakes are allowed to be made as they learn.
Fantastic. Okay. Here's a question. This is more of a process question. When changes are made to a given course, are those changes made in Kuali or are they made in your student information system and then moved into Kuali?
They're made in Kuali and then moved into our student information system.
And that's a good question. You know, there is no one set way of doing things. Ideally, Kuali curriculum management will become the source of truth for all of your curricular assets. But your implementation and your other systems may require that you operate differently for a while. And so there are definitely ways, and we do have customers that are still maintaining another system, often a homegrown system, as a source of truth, and the source of new curricular changes or new proposals happen in Kuali, and then there's a synchronization with the legacy system. So both are possible, but as you heard at SNHU, everything happens in Kuali, and then from there it is fed into other systems. Curriculum management, Kuali curriculum management is the source of truth. There's another question here. Does the system support different levels of access? And I think I can answer that question, although I'm sure everyone else can. So yes, there is a couple of levels of access right now, but it is something that is being worked on currently, is that we are creating and defining what other roles should be in the system. And we have, we're getting feedback from SNHU and our other partners and customers on what are those different levels of access. Really, how do you define them? What should people be able to do? What should they not be able to do? So we're well down the path of defining those roles, and we're now in the process of actually developing those roles. So yes, there will be a way for different levels of administration to happen, whether that's at the departmental level, at the college level, or at the very top level, and varying amounts of permissions to do things based on that. And as we typically do at QAwalli, we would make those roles configurable to some extent, because we know that not every institution is the same. So you'd have different roles and some ability to affect the permissions within those roles. All right, we're down to maybe 2 more questions if they're quick ones. So there's a question about fees, and I think that's, I don't know the answers to those questions, honestly, and that can depend on a number of things. So I know my colleagues will follow up with those answers. And there's another pricing structure that falls in the same category. And the final question, I think, for SNHU that we have time for is, once the faculty has submitted a proposal rationale, so in other words, a new proposal, and you have that ability to explain why you're doing that, what are the approval levels needed before the same is implemented?
So the proposal rationale is really just stating why they're making the changes they're making, and from there they can change every field in the form if they'd like, or they could just change one simple thing. Maybe they want to change the title of the course. And from there, it goes through the workflow process. The only difference is, depending on what type of change they make, would it go to the university provost or not? And so if it doesn't go to the provost, it's usually a smaller change, and we're able to implement that change quicker in our student information system.
Yeah, and that's a great answer. So there is a way, we have the notion of workflow rules. So when you configure, any data on the form can be used in a rule that you can evaluate the condition of that field, and you can make the workflow behave differently based on the selection in that particular field. And the example you heard is, if this change is minor, and that can be driven by a checkbox or something really simple, then you can actually create a rule that says, send it this path that skips this particular person who doesn't need to know that. But if this is a major change, then send it down this longer path. So all of that is fully configurable. You can create rules based on any of the data on the form. Okay, we have 1 minute, and I hate to go over because I know people have things to do. The last question is, does SNHU use your organizational structure in the workflow?
Yes, to an extent. The first few steps in the workflow, we're able to write, Sean, maybe you can help me, I'm not sure the correct jargon. It's not exactly a rule, but we're able to select the academic department that the workflow goes to initially, and then from there it escalates to the school's committee and then to the registrar and the provost. So in a way, we do use the hierarchy.
Right, yeah, that's exactly how I'd answer it. So many institutions are set up so that a unit, a department often owns a subject code. And so the user, when they are proposing a change to a course, we can trigger the hierarchy based on either the subject code or having the user enter the actual department that they're proposing to. Once we've done that, we do set up a hierarchy in the system based on the curricular approval hierarchy of the institution, which may not be an exact match of your official unit hierarchy, but it's a hierarchy based on approving this type of content. But yes, there is a way, and we have for SNHU configured a hierarchy so we know the parent-child relationship between units. And once the system knows the starting unit, then it knows the path at that point. All right, so we are over 1 minute, and we want to let you get back to your busy days, but we do thank everyone for attending today.